convoy of truckers who were, of course, inspired by last month's Ottawa protests reached Washington, D.C. Apparently, they went through with their cross-country protest of vaccine mandates, which aren't really a thing, and other COVID-related policies. Now, in response to the convoy, one cop from Tacoma, Washington, named Robert Hollingsworth, wanted to take a stand, and he expressed that police in Washington, D.C. should be hands off when it comes to this convoy. Let's watch what he had to say.
For the next minute or so, I'm a police officer for the Tacoma Police Department. This message is to the police in D.C. and other cities that have spineless and tyrannical leaders such as mine. Stop allowing the left and the media to use our profession for political gain. The Freedom Convoy is coming, and you will be tested. If you violate people's constitutional rights due to the orders of some liberal tyrant, conservatives will turn on you. And they absolutely should for you doing so. Let us not forget that conservatives support law enforcement as they realize it is essential to upholding our rights and freedoms as Americans. Please do not repeat what happened in Canada, as it only fuels the liberal narrative, divides our country, and goes against everything America is about. If you are going to stay in the profession, do it honorably. Remember, your oath is ultimately to uphold and support liberty, which is the absolute foundation this country is built upon. Police each other. And now for the fun part. I'll be signing off for the last time. Just want to say cheers, boys, and let's go, Brandon.
The job of a police officer is not to decide which laws he or she wants to enforce. The job of law enforcement is to enforce the law. They're not lawmakers. They don't get to decide what the current laws are. And this seems to be something that cops across the country, namely right-wing cops, seem to have a difficult time understanding or just don't know, because he thinks that the oath that he took as a police officer in Tacoma, Washington, is to simply carry out what he believes is liberty or protecting liberty. That is not your oath. Like, how did you, he took that oath, by the way. This is what the oath is. I, state your name, we went and looked it up, very curious. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, the state of Washington, and ordinances of the city of Tacoma. So if you have a group of protesters, for instance, who are breaking the law, listen, if the protesters aren't breaking the law and they're engaged in a peaceful protest, nonviolent protest, more power to them. If they want to protest something that doesn't really exist in America, okay. I mean, they're having fun, I'm not against that. But if they're breaking the law as they're doing these protests, if they're getting rowdy, if they're threatening people, if they're whatever, destroying property, the cops are supposed to carry out the law, enforce the law, protect the citizens in these neighborhoods. They're not supposed to like be hands off because they agree with the protesters who are breaking the law.
So there's two different things here. I think the more dangerous one is when he said conservatives will turn on you if you're a liberal tyrant, including the police chiefs, is what he seems to be saying. He said there's a tyrant who's telling him what to do. That's presumably the police chief, that's his boss. That's crazy talk and really dangerous, because that's telling conservative cops, don't listen to your bosses, don't listen to your chain of command, and turn on them. If you think they're impinging on your liberty or someone else's liberty in a weirdo random judgment call that you make. Oh, masks are an impingement upon my liberty. I'm gonna turn on my fellow cops and do what? Pull your gun? What are you gonna do when you turn on the cops? So, no, they gotta root out these people. And it doesn't matter if they're right wing or left wing. If any cop or anybody in the military is making videos about don't listen to your chain of command and just do whatever the hell you want and turn on your fellow officers against the law, that's insane. Of course it can't be tolerated. And by the way, they should also look into whether he's violated laws. But for sure, he can't be a cop. And he knows that, except at the end he changes his mind. We'll get to that in a second. But the part that Anna focused on about, oh, my oath is to uphold liberty. No, the reason why your oath is actually to uphold the laws is because we can't have every cop or everyone in the armed forces making random decisions on what they think liberty is.
Right.
Okay, well, what if it's really left-wing cops, and they think liberty is letting go all brown and black people from prisons. They just open up the prisons. What? But that's actually closer to liberty, isn't it? I mean, they would be free. Is he allowed to do that? Well, because he's a patriot and he thinks it's liberty, he's allowed. Oh no, you don't want him doing that. You don't want him taking the law into his own hands. But yet when this guy does it, I guarantee you, the right wing who could barely put together a thought will be like, hypocrisy, I don't know, I don't care. I don't care. I want to break the law if I feel like it.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they're gonna celebrate this guy. And one other thing, the Let's Go Brandon. I saw somebody this weekend. I had kids, they had kids, I didn't get into it. But they have a giant, it's a middle-aged woman has a giant Let's Go Brandon t-shirt on. If the kids weren't around, I would have gone up to her and be like, hey, how you doing? Oh, by the way, also F Trump. So, well, you get to say F Joe Biden, and that's cool, that's hunky-dory, right? But if we say F Trump, I guarantee they're all gonna lose it. They're gonna start crying and weeping about, oh, you can't say that about our president. And God knows that guy, he might do even something crazier. You've impinged upon my liberty.
I feel like people who wear that kind of stuff, especially the "Let's Go Brandon" statement, I just find it like embarrassing, right? Like it's so incredibly dorky and embarrassing. So it's, if anything, like I just feel uncomfortable because I'm embarrassed for them. Like,
no, I get it.
You want to wear the shirts. I don't care at all.
I got you. What I don't like is the uneven playing field, because the minute you say something about Trump, all of a sudden they're in their feelings. They're getting weepy-eyed. Oh, he was the president. You can't say that about him. So I'm so tired of their hypocrisy. This guy, I guarantee if you asked him, are you in favor of the rule of law? He would say, absolutely, that's why I joined the police, because I'm in favor of the rule of law. He just did a video saying, F the law, who cares what the law is? Just to care about your feelings and do whatever the hell you want if you're a cop, and turn on your fellow cops and do God knows what.
Yeah, and look, to your point about, you just can't have people running around enforcing whatever they think liberty is. I mean, you see that entitlement across the board. I mean, you certainly see it when it comes to the insane harassment that school boards have had to deal with across this country, with right-wingers demanding to be the arbiters of what should and should not be taught in history classes. What about the parents who actually want their kids to learn history? Parents who don't feel incredibly insecure about their children learning about this country's history with slavery and stuff like that. But those people don't matter, because in the mind frame of a typical right winger, they're entitled to be the deciders. They get to control every part of our lives, including what our own children get to learn about in public schools. That sense of entitlement is infuriating. That definitely upsets me more than their dorky "Let's Go Brandon" shirts. But I hear what you're saying. There is a double standard, and they catch feelings real quick when you have criticisms for Trump. With that said though, so Hollingsworth resigned from the police department, right? And you hear him signing off there in the video that we showed you. But his resignation was not in effect. It's not in effect until March 13th. So the police department released a statement addressing the video, and they say that it was brought to our attention that the Tacoma Police Department, that Patrol Officer Robert Hollingsworth posted a video to social media expressing personal political opinions while wearing a Tacoma Police Department uniform and sitting in a patrol vehicle. In doing so, Officer Hollingsworth violated city policy. The department is in the process of serving the officer with administrative leave paperwork. This will include the surrender of the officer's service weapon, badge, and department identification. The department had no prior knowledge of the individual's personal political views or their intention to post those views to social media while at work. Now, he had resigned, but apparently after all of this kind of blew up, he changed his mind a little bit and says, well, you know what? Maybe I'm thinking about rescinding my resignation. And so let's hear him on that.
Okay, so I just got word that Tacoma Police Department is placing me on admin leave, effective immediately, because they received a little bit of pushback from the media. So in cowardly fashion, instead of waiting a few days after my resignation to do so, which is totally fine, I totally accept it. What I'm thinking about doing is rescinding my resignation and fighting this out through the litigation process, because other officers numerous times have posted in uniform in their car. Things about, I don't know, where to shoot police officers in the vest in order not to kill them. And all I did was speak about upholding liberty, holding ourselves accountable. I don't understand the difference. So, yeah, we'll see.
I don't know what he's talking about regarding other officers. I think he's making that up.
I know what he's talking about. So he thought he wanted to get credit for doing something valiant, like I'm willing to resign. This is how important it is to me. Then afterwards, he realized, oh, I don't know where I'm going to get my next paycheck. And more importantly, I guarantee you, right wingers got in his ear, and they're like, dude, this is a good money making scam, actually. Then you get people, look at all the money they sent in the Rittenhouse, right? And you're a cop and you're fighting for liberty, right? And if you do a legal defense, they'll send you tons and tons of money. And you could pocket a whole bunch of it, and you get a lawyer friend, he can pocket a bunch of it. And the cop union will totally support you, even though you're advocating for violence against other cops. It doesn't matter. It's a totally runaway union that's massively right wing in almost every jurisdiction. They'll have your back. You could drag it out for a long time. Then you could sue the city and rob the taxpayers, because that would be a perfect thing to do as a cop. And then you take that money from that ill-gotten gains and put it in your pocket while pretending that you're the victim.
You're right, people do love to get robbed. Like, they love to give their money to scammers and grifters. Like, let's just remember what the heart of this whole controversy is, okay? It's this convoy of truckers who are protesting vaccine what vaccine mandates? At this point, if there are vaccine mandates implemented by private companies, it's because the private companies want the vaccine mandate, okay? This country has been pretty freaking hands off when it comes to a lot of things related to COVID. Dude, I was in Germany, let me just say, his head would explode. You know what happened in Germany? Everyone who was at this conference in Germany had to provide proof of vaccination, full vaccination, including the booster. You had to wear a mask at all times, okay? And every single day before you enter the conference, you have to prove that you got tested and you were tested negative for COVID within the last 24 hours. All of that. You're fully vaccinated, you've tested negative for COVID, you have to get tested every single day, and you wear a mask the whole time. Their heads would explode. They'd be suicidal. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
But it's not about any of that. There was no national vaccine in America. Now there's basically none for companies unless they want one. It's not government mandated. They're just looking for an excuse to be victims, precious little victims. And so they've oppressed people, the right wing in this country has, for hundreds of years. And the minute you ask them to say happy holidays instead of war on Christmas, I'm the victim. And so
except
here they
for
are
Merry
again.
Christmas, not War on Christmas.
Okay, sorry, Merry Christmas. Yeah. Although if you did, don't say any of their talking points, they'll catch feelings anyway. So none of this ever had anything to do with health or liberty or any of that stuff. It was just a giant right-wing way of being able to cry harder and pretend they're the victims, so they could oppress other people because now they're the victims. That's all they ever do, is oppress others. That's the whole point of right-wing ideology. I want to be able to control your lives and oppress you, and I want you to serve me, and I hate equality and justice. So just say it instead of crying all day and then trying to rob us afterwards. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.